Last week of school, and here I am making a crappy YouTube video for my final assessment. Hello everybody, welcome to this crappy video where I'll be ranking all of the human body systems from worst to best. This video is a part of my final for my anatomy and physiology class, a project given to me by Jesus Incarnate himself, where he tasked me with the goal of creating an artistic form of expression in order to convey what I've learned throughout my semester in anatomy and physiology. So I said, what better way to do this than in a crappy YouTube video, my best form of artistic expression. So without further ado, let's rank these body systems. First honorable mention is, of course, our endocrine system. Some of the more notable structures of the endocrine system are the pineal glands, the pituitary glands, the thyroid gland, the adrenal gland, your pancreas, your ovary, and your testes. That's right, your balls are a part of your endocrine system. The main function of all these structures is to serve as a chemical messaging structure, which releases hormones to tell every other body system what to do. The hormones released by the endocrine system make sure that each and every body system is working together to make sure that homeostasis is maintained inside the body. Also, the hormones released by the endocrine system also help to regulate the activity of body cells in homeostasis. Don't worry, Gen Zers, this ends the segment of the nerd crap of the endocrine system. Here are the pros and cons of the endocrine system. The pros are non-existent, and the con is, as a hormonal teenager, the endocrine system becomes your worst enemy. I'm gonna run away! I'm gonna run away, never come back! Our second honorable mention is, of course, the lymphatic system. Because there's so many freaking lymph nodes and mammary glands to count in the freaking body, I'm just gonna tell you that the structures inside your lymphatic system are your lymph nodes and mammary glands. It is also important to note that the lymphatic system is also technically part of the circulatory and immune system, as the lymph in the lymphatic system contains white blood cells, which the lymphatic vessels carry to the heart, and where the heart makes its way through the heart and is redistributed from the heart out to the body, just like blood. And yeah. More nerd crap. Once again, the pros of the lymphatic system are non-existent, and the cons are there are too many freaking lymphatic nodes in your body. There you go. Unfortunately, I had to leave these body systems off the main list because of a couple of reasons. Totally not because I didn't learn about these body systems in class, and they seemed too boring for me to actually learn them just for this video. So, yeah, that's why they're left off this list. Screw them. To start off the actual list, the first system that we're looking at is the integumentary system, or in noob terms, the skin system. The skin system / integumentary system has 3 different layers to it, like a cake. The epidermis, the dermis, and the hypodermis. The epidermis has its own layers. The first layer is the stratum corneum, which basically is a bunch of keratinized cells, which has the main function of providing mechanical protection against abrasion for more delicate layers of the skin. The next layer is the stratum lucidum, which is basically a translucent layer of the epidermis, and which is only found in thick skin of the palms, soles, and digits, which basically provide extra protection for the skin. The stratum granulosum has the main function of producing keratin, which accumulate as lamellar granules. The stratum spinosum is the layer which houses the Langerhans cells, which basically are macrophages for the epidermis. The stratum basilae is the last layer of the epidermis and houses the Merkel cells, which act as receptor and is responsible for stimulating sensory nerves and melanocyte, which produces the pigment melanin, which gives hair and skin its color. The dermis is the more fleshy part of the integument, and here is where you can find lymphatic vessels, nerve fibers, and touch receptors called the Meissner corpuscles. The dermis also houses sweat glands, important for lubricating the body to keep yourself cool, hair follicles, which are the roots of your hairs, and sebaceous glands, which naturally oil your hair. The last layer is the hypodermis, which contains most of the adipose tissue, which is basically fat tissue, and what makes you look fatty. The integumentary system also helps the digestive system, as it helps absorb vitamin D and it helps encourage the uptake of calcium from our diet, and works closely with your circulatory system, as many of the surface capillaries in your body are found in the integumentary system. The integumentary system also has multiple roles in homeostasis, ranging from protection, temperature regulation, sensory reception, biochemical synthesis, and absorption. Now that all the nerds crap out of the way, the pro is this picture of the integumentary system looks like something out of Minecraft. The big con is that my skin hides my sexy muscles, and I would be way more sexier as a muscle man. I'm bringing sexy back. Yeah. The mother boys don't know how to act. That is why the integumentary system is ranked last on this list. The next body system on our list is the respiratory system. As you breathe in, air enters your nasal cavity and your mouth, and then that air makes its way down either your pharynx or your larynx, and then makes its way to the windpipe, also known as your trachea. And then your trachea splits into a left and right bronchus where air enters into the lungs. From there, the air goes through little hallways called bronchi, which make its way, and then the air makes its way to the alveoli. And then the alveoli, which are small balloon air-shaped sacs, exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide. And then the carbon dioxide is expelled out of the body, while the oxygen is used to help operate other organs in your body system. While all of this is happening, the diaphragm contracts and flattens, which creates a vacuum effect that pulls air into the lungs, and then when the diaphragm relaxes, air is pushed out of the lungs, thus expelling carbon dioxide. The respiratory system also works pretty closely with the cardiovascular system, as blood from the right ventricle from the heart goes through the pulmonary artery into the lungs so that it can be oxygenated. And then the oxygenated blood becomes released from the heart and becomes accessible to other body systems, as oxygen can be used to power other organs and other body systems. In homeostasis, the function of the lungs is to provide oxygen for the body, which is good, and gets rid of carbon dioxide in the body, which is bad. Alright, time to shut up, nerd. Here's the pros and cons. The respiratory system gets rid of CO2, which is big no-no for my body, and I don't want to die to carbon dioxide poisoning. But breathing is for losers, and that's why the respiratory system sucks, and that's why it's so low on this list. Now moving on, next up on our list we got the urinary system. The urinary system is also known as the renal system, and is also responsible for producing, storing, and eliminating urine. And if you're stupid and don't know what urine is the fluid waste excreted by kidneys. The process of urination starts when kidneys make urine by filtering waste and extra water from the blood. Then the urine travels from the kidneys through two thin tubes called ureters. The two ureters then lead into the bladder, where urine begins to collect and build up. And as the bladder continues to fill up, the bladder continues to stretch until it cannot hold enough urine, and then the urine is finally eliminated from the body through the urethra. Being told, males and females have similar reproductive systems, but instead of eliminating urine through a pee, women urinate through of the urinary system works closely with the cardiovascular system as blood goes through the kidneys so it can be filtered and cleaned so that you don't have any extra waste lying around in your body. The urinary system's role in homeostasis is to maintain the water and salt balance of blood so that you don't have too much water or salt in your blood, which could lead to organ failure in multiple body systems. Now that the nerds have left the building, it's time to talk about the pros and cons. The pro is that peeing is fun and is one of the many pleasures in life. Con is that pee is not stored in the balls, which means that the urinary system sucks and it belongs in the bottom of the tier list. Next up on the list, we got the reproductive system. And what better song to accompany this section than penis music? It actually exists, go Google it. In the male reproductive system, males have testes, where most of the sperm production occurs. The vas deferens are the long muscular tubes that transports mature sperm to the urethra in preparation for ejaculation. The seminal vesicles are two small glands that produce and store majority of the fluid that makes up semen. During ejaculation, the fluid from the seminal vesicles is expelled into the ejaculatory duct, where it can then move on to mix with sperm and other reproductive fluids. Prostate gland's main function is to secrete prostate fluid, one of the main components of semen. The muscles of the prostate gland also help propel seminal fluid into the urethra during ejaculation. The urethra is basically just a place where ejaculation occurs. And the penis is basically just the housing unit of the urethra, and the scrotum's main function is to make sure that the testes stay at a fixed temperature so that sperm doesn't die. In the female reproductive system, females have ovaries where eggs are produced and released. Once eggs are released, they make their way into the fallopian tube where the eggs can be fertilized to make a baby. The uterus is where the baby ends up growing if an egg is fertilized. The cervix is basically just a valve between the uterus and the vagina. It also directs the sperm into the uterus during sexual intercourse. The vagina is where the male inserts his penis and where he ejaculates into so that the sperm may enter the woman, and with the possibility of the sperm flying into the fallopian tube, fertilizing an egg, and creating a baby, which will grow in the uterus. The vagina is also where the baby is born from. The only other body system that the reproductive system really works with is the endocrine system. Hormones secreted by the endocrine system initiate sexual desires and sexual pleasure, and initiating sexual intercourse. Making the reproductive system work. In homeostasis, the major function of the reproductive system is to ensure the survival of our species. Now, moving on to the pros and cons. Now, the pro is one of the greatest body parts, also known as the penis, is part of the reproductive system. The con is, ew, sex. I'm a good Christian boy, and we don't talk about sex. Moving on to the next section, we got the digestive system. Now, the only way I can explain how the digestive system and each and every one of its parts works is to explain the digestive process itself. The digestive process begins with ingestion and mastication, when you put your food into your mouth. During mastication, your lips, your cheeks, and your tongue hold your food in place so it can be crushed by your teeth. The tongue also pushes food up into the hard palate of your mouth, which also helps crush down food. At the same time, salivary glands are releasing saliva, which contain an enzyme called amylase, which is important in the breakdown of carbohydrates into simpler carbohydrates. The tongue mixes the crushed food with saliva to create a bolus. Then the tongue propels the bolus back into your throat to commence the process of deglutition. In deglutition, the soft palate of the mouth and the uvula move to cover the nasal cavity to make sure food doesn't travel into the nasal cavity. The epiglottis also moves to cover the windpipe to make sure that no food goes down the windpipe, possibly compromising the respiration of a person. After the tongue throws the bolus back into your throat, it enters the larynx where there transported to the esophagus, where the esophagus transports the food slash bolus down through the esophagus and to the cardiac sphincter, or the valve of the stomach, the first valve of the stomach. Then from there, food begins to enter the stomach through the cardiac sphincter. In the stomach, the process of the breakdown of proteins begins, but however, this is not where the majority of the protein breakdown occurs. The main thing that happens within the stomach is the food slash the bolus is breaking down to a white, like, paste kind of substance called chyme. From here, the stomach moves the chyme towards the pyloric sphincter, where it is then transported into the small intestine. In the small intestine, specifically in the duodenum portion of the small intestine, the food continues to be broken down with the help of the liver, gallbladder, and pancreas, as they secrete products into the duodenum to help break down the food into simpler forms like amino acids, fatty acids, and monosaccharides. Once they are broken down into this simpler form, some of your food can finally be absorbed by the jejunum, where most of the nutrient absorption of your food takes place. The last portion of your small intestine, the ileum, cleans up after the jejunum and absorbs any products that were not absorbed in the jejunum. The remaining food that moves on to the large intestine, where excess water from indigestible substances is absorbed. However, absorption is not the main purpose of the large intestine. The main purpose of the large intestine is to create feces, which is built throughout the large intestine and sent to the rectum. Once sensory nerves in the rectum detect that there is enough feces within the rectum, you begin the defecation process, where feces in the rectum begin being pushed out by the rectum through the anus and eventually leave the body. Yeah, poop! The digestive system works really closely with the circulatory system, because when your food is absorbed in the jejunum, the nutrients are absorbed into the bloodstream, which is a part of the circulatory system. There, the blood moves around the body, delivering the nutrients to any body system that needs a specific kind of nutrient. The digestive system also works with the nervous system to initiate both voluntary and involuntary digestive mechanisms, like mastication, which could be involuntary or voluntary, and propulsion, which is an involuntary digestive mechanism. The pro of the digestive system is that eating is fun and tastes good. However, the digestive system is held back by the fact that easy eating is for losers. You loser, you eat, you suck. I love you though. Moving into our number 4 spot, here we are with the muscular system. All 650 muscles and 187 joints. Some people actually have never even heard of the muscular system because they're too busy being alpha gamers, and muscles are for beta males. But if I find you playing Fortnite, I will find you and I will kill you. Alright, now time for some nerd crap.
The muscle system is an organ system consisting of skeletal and cardiac muscles. It permits the movement of the body, maintains posture, and circulates blood throughout the body. The muscle systems and vertebrae are controlled through the nervous system, although some muscles can be completely autonomous. It helps stabilize our joints, maintain our posture, and generate heat during activity.
Alright, now that that's over with, it is time for my list of the top 3 greatest muscles of all time. Number 3 being the gluteus minimus, number 2 being the gluteus medius, and number 1 being the gluteus maximus. Because, but, And butts. And now back to the nerd crap.
The digastric muscle is a muscle in the neck that lifts the hyoid bone. The temporalis is a muscle near the temporal lobe of your brain. And is responsible for lifting the lower jaw in order to bite or close the jaw and maintain jaw posture. It also works really closely with the nervous system of the body, as chemical signals are sent from the somatic nerve from the efferent slash neuron motor efferent division of the neuron, which releases a chemical called acetylcholine, which then makes it into the synaptic cleft, which initiates muscle contraction. And the muscular system also works with the skeletal system as the muscle pulls on different bones and with their tendons to create locomotion as the muscles pull on the different bones to get the body to move. Moving on to the pros and cons. The pro is muscles are very sexy, and I would like to be a muscle man. However, the big con is skeletons are sexier, and the muscular system covers up some parts of the skeletal system. Man, skeletons are so sexy. Moving into our top 3, we got the skeletal system. Well, first, let's start off with some nerd crap. Long bones of the skeletal system have a special structure where the epiphysis or the head of the bone has spongy bone, and the diaphysis, also known as the middle part of the long bone, has compact bone instead of spongy bone. It is also important to note that the epiphysis has a red marrow while the diaphysis has yellow marrow. The red marrow of the epiphysis is involved in production of red blood cells while the yellow marrow of the diaphysis is important in fat storage. Obviously, the skeletal system works with the cardiovascular system because the epiphysis produces the red blood cells that are part of the blood, and that is part of the circulatory system. And of course, as stated before, it also is pulled by muscles to create locomotion and to create so that the body can make movements. Alright, now that all the nerd crap's over, it is time for the top 3 bones of all time. Number 3, the rib cage. All 7 true ribs, 5 false ribs, and rib sets 11 and 12 being the floating ribs. Ribcage is important in protecting major organs such as the lungs and the heart. It also provides support for the body, and it helps in respiration. Number 2 is the femur, which is important in supporting the weight of the body and allowing motion of the leg. Number 1 is... No, for real though, men, your erection does not count as a bone. Why do we call it boners? It's not a bone. Anyways, the pro is that skeletons are sexy as hell. But the big con is your erection is not considered a part of your skeletal system. Alright, moving into our number 2 spot, we got the cardiovascular system. Don't worry, this is the section I'll actually take seriously. So the cardiovascular system is split up into two different parts, the blood and the heart. I'm going to first talk about the blood. Some characteristics of blood is that its pH is between 7.35 and 7.45. It makes up about 20% of the extracellular fluid and about 8% of the body mass. There are about 7 kinds of formed elements within the blood. The first being erythrocytes, which are the red blood cells. The second being platelets, which are cell fragments from a special cell in bone marrow. Leukocytes, which are red blood cells, and there are about 5 different types of leukocytes. Granulocytes include neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. Agranulocytes include lymphocytes and monocytes. For the sake of time, I will not be explaining what each leukocyte does. And the primary functions of blood is to deliver oxygen and nutrients and to remove waste from body cells. And then there's the heart, which is its own complex organ within the cardiovascular / circulatory system.
The best way I know how to describe how the heart works is through going through the entire process of how blood goes to the heart. First things first, deoxygenated blood from the upper body goes through the superior vena cava and makes its way into the right atrium, and deoxygenated from the lower blood goes through the inferior vena cava and makes its way into the right atrium. Any excess blood that cannot be held in the right atrium is held in something called an auricle, which is like a little flap on the heart. Once enough blood collects into the right atrium, the tricuspid valve opens, allowing blood to flow into the right ventricle. The tricuspid valve then closes to prevent the backflow of blood in the right ventricle back into the right atrium. Then from the right ventricle, the blood goes through the pulmonary semilunar valve, and then it makes its way to the pulmonary artery of the heart. And then from the pulmonary artery, the blood is sent off to be oxygenated by the lungs. Then from the lungs, the pulmonary veins bring back oxygenated blood back into the heart, into the left atrium. The left atrium also has an auricle that catches excess blood that comes back from the pulmonary veins. Then from the left atrium, the mitral bicuspid valve will open, allowing blood to flow into the left ventricle. From there, the blood is pumped through the aortic semilunar valve, and then from there, the aortic semilunar valve takes the blood to the aorta, and then from the aorta, the oxygenated blood is sent out throughout the body and is part of systemic circulation. Circulatory system works closely with other systems in our body as it supplies oxygen and nutrients to our body by working with the respiratory system. At the same time, the circulatory system helps carry out wasted carbon dioxide out of the body. Now, you may be wondering, why do my organs need oxygen? Well, do you want to die? Now, the pros about what and the reason why the heart is and the cardiovascular system and the circulatory system is so high is because the heart is such a critical organ to our survival. If we didn't have our heart, I don't know how we would live. But the thing about my heart is that it's broken, and that's the con.
You left me falling and landing inside my grave.
And without a doubt, the best body system is, of course, the nervous system. I mean, look at my business card. It legit says I'm a neurologist. Now, the nervous system is divided into two different parts. The central nervous system, the CNS, and the peripheral nervous system, the PNS, or how I like to call it, the penis. The PNS also has two different divisions. The autonomic nervous system, which functions to regulate the body's unconscious actions like the beating of the heart or breathing. And then there's the motor/efferent division. Motor/efferent division also has its own subdivisions, as the somatic nervous system is responsible for the voluntary portion of the motor/efferent division, as it conducts impulses from the CNS to skeletal muscles. And then there are also the parasympathetic and sympathetic portions of the motor/efferent division. The parasympathetic nervous system conserves energy as it slows down the heart rate and increases intestinal and gland activity, and also relaxes sphincter muscles in the GI tract. It's often called the rest and digest system. And then there's the sympathetic division, which is the primary process to stimulate the body's fight or flight or freeze response. It's the nervous system's, fight or flight response thingy. Now let's dive into the structure of some of the neurons of the PNS. The first notable thing are the dendrites, which are the receptor sites of a neuron and are responsible for conducting chemical signals toward the cell body. The cell body is basically just the head of the neuron, and it transfers information to the axon hillock where the nerve impulse is created. Axon hillock, as stated before, is where the nerve impulse is created. The axon, which is the long thread-like part of the cell, carries impulses from the axon hillock away from the cell body. At the end of the axon are axon terminals, which holds neurotransmitters, and nerve impulses trigger the release of these neurotransmitters. Schwann cells are most known for forming the myelin sheaths that cover the axon in the PNS, and the myelin sheaths that cover the axon have the purpose of insulating the neuron and enhancing the electrical signals, and to keep the nerve fibers from touching. Now, the CNS controls most functions of our body and mind, and a neuron from the CNS is structured a little bit differently than the PNS. A neuron in the CNS has the major parts of the neuron, like a cell body and an axon, but it is structured a little bit differently than the PNS neurons, as astrocytes are not present in the PNS system, and the astrocytes are responsible for clinging to blood capillaries and neurons and play a large role in making exchanges between capillaries and neurons, and function as an antigen presenting cells in the immune response. Microglia are a special type of macrophage in the CNS that help protect the CNS as they engulf invading microorganisms and dead neural tissue. Oligodendrocytes are basically just a replacement to Schwann cells in the PNS, however lack neurolemma. Epididymal cells are cells that line the central cavities of the brain and spinal cord, where they form a permeable barrier between cerebrospinal fluid that fills these cavities and the tissue fluid that bathes the CNS. Now, moving on to my favorite part of the entire nervous system, the brain. For the sake of time, I will only be going over the regions and briefly over the limbic system. The frontal lobe is the frontmost part of the brain and is responsible for personality, judgment / decision making, and motor control. If you're wondering which body systems the nervous system works with, my best explanation is it works with everything. Think of the nervous system as the captain of the ship. The nervous system tells every other body system what to do and how to do it and when to do it. It transmits information all around the body so that all of your organs work together and that you don't die. Now, moving on to the pros and cons. The pros are it does everything for your body. If you didn't have your nervous system, how would you survive? Everything your body does it just because the nervous system told that specific organ to do it. There are no cons, and that is why the nervous system is at the top of our list. Anyway, that marks the end of our video. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me, what would your tier list of the human body systems look like? But anyways, peace, and I hope you guys have a great summer.